Welcome to this explainer. We're diving straight into a massive, hidden fracture at the very top of global power today. Based on our source material, we are looking at a deep geopolitical clash between U.S. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a clash following a highly tense phone call that analysts suggest could literally reshape the entire Middle East.
To make sense of the source material, we're going to quickly walk through the high-stakes phone call itself, the totally conflicting visions at play, the Greater Israel concept, the strategy of exhaustion, and finally, what all this means for the rest of the globe. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The high-stakes phone call. A proposal for peace meets fury.
So the whole catalyst for this explainer is a recent hour-long phone call about a brand new Middle East peace proposal. According to the text, President Trump proposed a 30-day window to freeze the conflict and actually hammer out a deal with Iran. With mediators like Qatar and Pakistan involved, the goal was to set up a brief negotiation period where Iran would sign a letter of intent. The source makes it very clear. Trump is actively hunting for a deal here. He wants to hit pause on the bombing and stabilize the immediate region right now.
But wow, the pushback was intense. The source notes that Netanyahu is absolutely furious about this. Top U.S. officials cited in the text literally said his hair was on fire, and that he told Trump straight up that pausing the attack on Iran would be a fatal mistake. So this brings up the central question of our explainer. Why on earth is a ceasefire presented by the source as his absolute worst nightmare?
Which brings us to Section 2, Conflicting Visions, two distinct approaches to the Middle East. The source breaks down two totally incompatible strategies here. On one hand, you've got Trump's highly transactional approach. Give Iran a few days, lift some supervised sanctions, get global markets under control, and drop those soaring oil prices to secure U.S. interests without endless warfare. On the flip side, you have Netanyahu's total defeat strategy. The analysis points out that he completely rejects diplomacy, calling it just foot-dragging. Instead, his goal is to completely level Iran's economy, their military, and their critical infrastructure. So we're looking at a huge fundamental clash between wanting rapid stabilization and demanding permanent regional dominance.
All right, moving to Section 3, the Greater Israel concept, the ideological core.
To really get why diplomacy is being rejected so hard, this source points us toward a very specific geopolitical ideology known as Greater Israel, or Eretz Yisrael Hashlema. Now, the text stresses that this isn't some hidden fringe conspiracy theory. Critics and analysts cited in the source argue it's a highly visible state policy. The core idea? Actively dismantling powerful sovereign nations to achieve a massive regional restructuring and significantly expand borders.
And analysts cited in our source material connect the dots, arguing that current military actions aren't just about immediate defense, but rather point toward a single goal of expansion. They point to the relentless displacement we're seeing in Gaza, the rapid annexation happening in the West Bank, and those devastating military incursions into Lebanon. The argument being made here is that these aren't just isolated security measures, they are coordinated steps meant to completely dismantle the existing borders of the Middle East.
This leads us to Section 4. The strategy of exhaustion, the methodology of endless war. So you might be wondering, how do you actually pull off such a massive restructuring of an entire region? Well, the text outlines a specific methodology called the strategy of exhaustion in 3 steps. Step 1, trap sovereign nations in a relentless cycle of endless war. Step 2, exhaust their militaries and resources by making sure they constantly fight each other. And Step 3, simply wait for them to collapse from the inside out. The analysis argues that if you keep neighboring Muslim nations weak, fragmented, and basically burning, there's literally no resistance left to stop those expansionist goals.
Here's a really fascinating yet stark claim from the source. In this framework, peace is actually an ideological death sentence. Think about it. If peace happens today, sovereign nations start rebuilding, their economies stabilize, and crucially, international laws actually get enforced. Nations have to answer for their actions at places like the International Court of Justice. According to this analysis, peace brings accountability, and accountability stops this whole regional restructuring dead in its tracks.
Finally, Section 5, the global ripple effects, why this clash actually matters to you. The text points out this incredibly confident quote from President Trump. Netanyahu will do whatever I want him to do. But while Trump projects total control, the source warns the reality is a whole lot more dangerous. The analysis argues that history actually shows Netanyahu is a master at manipulating American presidents to serve his own vision. And according to the text, that includes actively trying to drag the U.S. into a direct, heavy-lifting war with Iran, plunging the entire region into chaos, while American forces are the ones doing the fighting.
The analysis really hammers home that if these peace talks are sabotaged, the whole world is going to pay the price. The global stakes outlined in the source are absolutely massive. We're talking about a multi-decade regional war, a massive drain on the global economy, soaring inflation that will hit everyone's wallet, and honestly, the looming threat of World War III. The text makes the case that the architect of this strategy isn't really concerned with these global consequences. The destruction is just viewed as a necessary stepping stone.
Ultimately, the source concludes that what we're looking at is no longer about defense, it's about conquest. It is a calculated objective to weaken an entire region. And that leaves us with a truly provocative question to consider. Will the world step in to stop this dangerous gamble, or just watch the Middle East burn to fulfill one man's vision of Greater Israel? It's a stark warning from the source text and definitely a critical lens for viewing today's ongoing headlines. Thanks for tuning into this explainer. Keep questioning and keep looking closely